Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Justin Barney, and this is Nashville. That felt so cool. I'm a guest host, and I'm talking about the Belcourt Theatre today. The Belcourt first opened its doors on May 18th, 1925. And over the past 100 years, it has taken many forms before coming to the art house theater that we know it as today. Joining us now to talk live about the long and varied history of this jewel in Nashville's crown is Belcourt public historian Teddy Minton. Hi, Teddy. Before we get into it and the story of the Belcourt, we have a special message for the theater from a native Nashvilleian.
Hi, I'm James Austin Johnson. I am a Belcourt patron, and I'm a cast member on Saturday Night Live. You know, when I first started going to the Belcourt, the people working there at that time were the true heads, the cinephiles, as we might imagine them. You know, I saw a couple neckbeards, you know, back before we had a word for that. And yeah, it's a more welcoming space now, because when it was this small dedicated team of passionate people, it seemed like the place was always on the edge of non-existence. And so to see it thriving and to see so many passionate people turning up to watch a 35 millimeter cut of an obscure David Lynch movie, to see something like that happening in Nashville is really special to me, because I remember being really young and wanting to be a part of that nerdy world. Batman Forever playing at May 16th, man, I wish I was in town for that. I would love to see Batman Forever with a group of people. There's just nothing like seeing some of these movies with people in the room. There's nothing like laughing with a bunch of people in a movie theater. It's the best. After the great cataclysm, whatever that is, I guarantee you we will be crowding into rooms while one of us goes up and explains why they like the movie before it plays. Even if the world ends, we will still be like, I want to show everybody the Grand Budapest Hotel on Wednesday. Is that cool with everybody? I really like that one. Watch out. We're coming for you. We're going to take you out. Tote bag. And you know what? Many happy returns.
That was James Austin Johnson, who famously does an impression of President Trump on Saturday Night Live. Also native Nashvilleian, you might have seen his headshot behind the counter at the Loveless Cafe, and a fan and patron of the Belcourt Theater. I'm here with Teddy, who is the historian at the Belcourt. Teddy, you're going to take us from May 18th, 1925 until 1999, when we have some key drama that happens. But tell us about the opening of the Belcourt Theater, 1925. Can you paint the scene? What does Nashville look like? Who opens the Belcourt, and what is it at that time?
Yeah, so when the Belcourt opened in 1925 in Hillsborough Village, that was a newly developing suburb, one of the city's first suburbs. And so it was a bustling little neighborhood of growing businesses and entrepreneurial spirit. And the theater was opened by a man named M.A. Lightman and his father, Joseph Lightman. His father, Joseph, was an immigrant to America from Hungary just after the revolution there. So they were transplants to the city, and they were really ambitious and upwardly mobile, and M.A. had attended Vanderbilt University as an engineering student, but he got bit by the showbiz bug and was, himself familiar with the stage. He did community theater, and he was a wrestler, so he saw an opportunity in the growing business of cinema and film exhibition. So he decided to open a theater. His first ones were in Alabama. And he started a small growing chain of theaters, and ours was I think the sixth, but it was, one of a handful.
So the Belcourt started as a chain.
A small chain, and that was very typical back then because there weren't the same restrictions that we think of now as far as antitrust laws and things like that. That was typical, which was to buy a theater and then buy others and try to chain them together. There was the studio system, which was theaters that were starting to become extensions of the major studios in Hollywood, but MA opened all of his as independent of those studios. So his were his own independent chain. And today that chain of theaters is called Malco, which is still active, and they have over 30 theaters in the Southeast today based out of Memphis.
Oh, wow. So what was the first movie that was played at the Belcourt?
The first movie was a D.W. Griffith film called America, which was it was a romantic epic based on the Revolutionary War with some dramatic love interest involved. It was not one of Griffith's most well-known films or even well-respected even in its time, but it was nonetheless, he was considered a important filmmaker in his time, even though a lot of his films in their time and today would be considered deeply racist and problematic. But at the time, he was still drawing crowds in. And so MA put that film as the first one, hoping to draw good crowds in to see it, as people had been interested in D.W. Griffith's films. And, at the time we opened as a silent theater house, a place for silent films, but also vaudeville, community plays, concerts, that kind of thing, because theaters back then were, especially on an independent level, were multi-purpose. Yeah.
So it was silent films.
That's correct.
A film not even good in its time.
Not necessarily. It was not very successful, but...
So I've heard that there is a tie to the Grand Ole Opry and kind of early Belcourt. What's the story there?
The story there is that the Grand Ole Opry was outgrowing its space, where they had been hosting the show inside of their own studio, and the space was becoming overrun with fans, so they needed to pivot and figure out how to make the show accessible to their fans that was not inside of their business, where they also sold insurance. So the radio station decided to look for a sizable theater, and our theater at the time, it's sort of hard to imagine now, but when we opened, we were 1,100 capacity theater. We had a small balcony that ran around, sort of U-shaped around the theater. And so it was much bigger than the studio space. So they started renting it there. And of course, the show was already at that point being broadcast to millions of people due to Clear Channel. So it was immensely popular and very quickly outgrew the space. But it was there from 1935 to 1936, about a 7-month period. But it was really pivotal because during that time, the show figured out its format, which it still essentially uses today, which was to split the show up into 2 crowds, to split the segments up so that every artist could play short sets and that they could monetize it with commercials and sell products. And they could also wear costumes and be visible as the sort of country music celebrities that they were becoming.
So was that before the Ryman or after the Ryman?
It's before the Ryman. So we are considered the first stage of the Grand Ole Opry because we are the first place that they perform in public outside of their radio station.
That is absolutely wild. So the Belcourt Theatre, actual home of the Grand Ole Opry, actual first stage. There should be they should have the circle on,
It's still the same floorboards on most of the stage today. Yeah.
Out front. So it also has a long history with theater and public theater. Mm-hmm. So you said there was a balcony up top. Mm-hmm. So it was more of so they're playing silent films, they're Grand Ole Opry's in there sometimes, but there's also, can you tell me about the history with theater?
Yeah. So community theater naturally, came into the space within the first year of being open as a silent film house. And that group was called the Nashville Little Theater Guild. Was founded by a few people, but including a guy named Lark Taylor, and they started doing plays inside the theater. That shifted and morphed into something that was called Nashville Community Playhouse, but it retained a lot of the same membership. And in that time, they also started developing theater with children, which then became the Nashville Children's Theater, which is one of the longest running professional theaters for children in America, and it began in our space as well. So our stage history extends from 1926 to about 1958. Really, there's some overlapping years when we became a cinema again, where we were still occasionally having live theater. So really, it kind of extends until about 1964. But by 1962, we had pivoted back to film. So a large part of our history, basically half of it, is serving as a place for community theater, a place where Nashville's theater for children and for adults was really professionalized in the city, was on our stage.
That is wild. So, but it's still playing movies until 1962?
No, we actually closed as a exclusively silent film house in 1927 because a theater opened at the end of the block called the Belmont Theater, and they put us out of business. That theater was owned by a guy named Tony Sudicum, who ran a chain of his own called Crescent Amusement, which was the largest chain in the Southeast. And that was based in Nashville. So he put us out of business as that. But, we pivoted and retained the live theater component, and that company grew and lasted for decades in our space.
Okay, so silent theater for not all that long.
Like a year, basically.
For like a year, shuts down community theater, Grand Ole Opry, the ship that launches 1,000 vessels that we are still in until today. And then movies come back in 62?
That's right. And during the time as a theater space, it launched the careers of many popular entertainers. A lot of people came through that space, went on to direct Oscar-winning films, went on to do television and radio. So it was a professional space too. But 1962 is where we pivoted back to, and then by 1964 became permanently a space again for cinema, for film. And we were called Belcourt Cinema at that time. And we remained Belcourt Cinema from about 1964 to about 1997 when Watkins Film Institute began programming in the space and trying to take it over. Go.
Let's stay on like this 1962-64. Why switch from the theater? But I mean, I would assume they would have to put in screens and stuff.
Yeah, they did. The space has undergone a few variations on remodels, but the long and the short of it is that the community playhouse, though it had been successful for many decades, was at the time experiencing a lot of financial difficulties. They had taken on some debt to remodel the space, to also keep ownership of the building, and all that's to say that they weren't able to sustain themselves any longer. So they started renting out to a guy named Fred Massey to do film again. But eventually Fred Massey just bought the building from them so they could get out from underneath their debts. And they turned into a different guild, moved out of the space, and he turned the space into Belcourt Cinema and annexed a second theater a couple of years later because it was so successful, which made us the first twin cinema, the first dual screen cinema in the state of Tennessee and also in Nashville.
Okay, we've got about 2.5 minutes left in this segment. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. We're talking about the Belcourt, which turns 100. And so we're talking about this key period, like in the 90s here. Let's from 1997 to 1999, really kind of tumultuous times. Can you bring us to what's happening at the theater in 1999 when ultimately it closes down and has this big? Yeah,
the theater was really suffering from a lack of care, a lack of, things were caving in on people. It was leaking. It was a really old building that hadn't been remodeled since 1958, essentially. And so when Watkins took it over, it was really struggling not only to maintain new film programming that would speak to the community's needs and would start drawing in a different kind of crowd, but also they were contending with a building that was on the verge of collapse. And so when they weren't able to maintain the space themselves, the building itself became vulnerable to being razed, essentially to succumbing to new kind of development in the neighborhood. And that's when people in the community started rallying, realizing that they could lose the space, and decided that they wanted to try to save the building from being razed and turned into whatever else it would have become. And so that's when a grassroots movement called Belcourt Yes began to try to save the theater. Okay, and we're going to get into Belcourt Yes. We're going to get into saving the theater. We've been talking with Teddy Minton, the historian at the Belcourt Theater. Teddy is going to be back later in the hour, and we're going to be talking about what the Belcourt is doing for its 100-year anniversary. Teddy, thank you for bringing us from 1925 to the tumultuous time of 1999, like when the Belcourt actually closes. We're gonna get from 1999 to 2025 after the break. Thank you.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Justin Barney, and this is Nashville. We are talking about the Belcourt Theatre, which turns 100 years old this year. Later in the hour, we're going to be taking your calls. Tell us some of your favorite memories of the Belcourt, some vivid times, something that happened. The number is 615-760-2000. And right now, we have joining us Stephanie Silverman, the executive director of the Belcourt Theatre, and Tom Will, longtime Belcourt community volunteer. Welcome to This Is Nashville, Stephanie and Tom.
Thanks, Justin. Good to be here.
Glad to be here, man.
We're going to let's give a little bit of a recap here. So as Teddy was telling us, the Belcourt has seen some difficult times in the past 3 decades. You're taking us from 1999 to 2025. The Belcourt Cinema operated from 1964 to 1997, was Tennessee's first dual-screen theater. It closed for the first time in October 1997. That same year, Charlie Hawkins purchased the building and reopened it as Watson's Belcourt. The Watsons refers to Watson's Film School, which is part of the Watson's Art Institute, which is now Watson's College at Belmont. The first Watson's Belcourt film in October of 1997 was The Myth of Fingerprints. And the Watkins Belcourt lasted until January of 1999 when the Belcourt closed. Tom, what was the community reaction to the theater closing in 99?
It was sort of devastating at the time. There was a lot of redevelopment going on starting in Nashville at that time. There was a very prominent apartment building, the Jacksonian, that got torn down and replaced with the Walgreens at 31st and West End that people were really upset about. And the other thing is that the Titans were coming to town. And so there were signs for NFL yes all over the city. I personally had just gotten to know the Belcourt and out of college and came home and discovered the Watkins era Belcourt. And Jim Ridley wrote an article for the Nashville Scene.
Yes,
the late
I
Jim
read this.
Yes, and the late great icon that he was. In it, he mentioned that there was going to be a meeting for people interested in saving it because Julia Sutherland had reached out to him and was trying to orchestrate something. He said, "Well, if you have a meeting, I will put it in my article." So he conspired to publicize this, and I read it. And about a group of us met at Bongo Java upstairs on Belmont Boulevard, and we the people that hung around at the end, about 8 of us. Became the founders of the nonprofit, and a friend of mine and I, one day sitting in Fido, were thinking about it, and I had the idea that if we can afford the NFL, then we can afford the Belcourt. So we printed Belcourt Yes yard signs, and they got spread around the community. And I remember all the yards in the Belmont area that hadn't mowed their lawns had Belcourt yard signs. So we were off to a grassroots start from the beginning.
Okay, and so Belcourt Yes is this nonprofit that was started to get the Belcourt back in business, back on the ground. We actually have a clip from, you were talking about Julia Sutherland. We have a clip from Julia, the co-founder and executive director who participated in a series of interviews for the Centennial. And we have a clip on some of her thoughts about helping to save the theater and how they were driven by a strong desire to improve the city.
I don't know what we were all doing in our lives or not doing in our lives that we made the time to do this. But it became, at least for me, the most important thing that was going on. And I think for everybody, because we were meeting 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. Everybody was very passionate. There were fights, there were huge disagreements, but we all came out unanimous on just about everything. It was tough. It was very tough. And I think if we didn't ultimately have an extreme amount of respect for the skill set and the passion that each person brought, and because we had to create a pro forma, and most of us had never done that before. I was in my mid-late 20s and I had never put that together. And so, but it was definitely a cause. We felt so strongly that if this went away, it meant so many other bad things for our city. And we had no idea that people were going to want to start moving here. All we cared about was that we lived here and our families lived here. And we wanted probably our children to live here, our friends living here. And we just couldn't let it go. So it became a lot bigger than just us. And then we couldn't stop.
That was the Belcourt Yes co-founder, Julia Sutherland, talking about what it was like in 1999 when the Belcourt closed. And I read that article that you talked about, and it's an obituary. Like, the Belcourt is gone. It was referring to it in the past tense. Julia was talking about fights there. Like, I would think that you all formed to, like, let's keep it going. It should be a movie theater that people should go to. What are the fights that you were having?
Well, I don't remember any actual fisticuffs, but we had to get really creative with the programming because the Belcourt closed because people did not want to go see movies there. That's the reality is the film audience was not built in Nashville.
Yeah,
and so we started off. We went to community meetings and we came out with film, music, and live theater. And that was the history of the building. So we started there, and pretty quickly, live theater was proved to not be a right mix for us because it required too much time on the stage, and where you couldn't do other things. But in the beginning, it was we were lucky that we had a stair-step lease with Charlie Hawkins and the owners. So it was cheap rent for the first year. It was going to go up every year it went. But the problem was making it financially viable.
Right.
And you can't fight economics in that sense.
Right. And so then it reopened in 2000?
We reopened in 2000, and we did a very cursory sort of renovation of bathrooms and the green rooms and stuff. We created below the stage. Lots of late night hours working on just by the skin of our teeth, pulling things together. I think my mother made the Nashville scene after the opening for calling the women's bathroom horrid, and their gossip column. God rest her soul. But it was a very grassroots effort, you have a question.
Well, so it reopened in 2000, and then I hear in 2003 that there was a threat to the theater once again that could have been fatal. I heard a group of songwriters approached the owner of the building with intent to buy it and make it into another music venue here in Nashville to end the theater's run. And the owner asked them to try to work with Belcourt Yes to perhaps work out a co-ownership, but that didn't work out. You stepped in. What happened there?
Well, the Belcourt was first saved by music. We we became a concert venue that was where we were able to make enough money at the bar on a Saturday night to pay the rent for the week, even if the films didn't didn't cover the costs.
Wow.
And you had Warren Zevon, it would be one of the early acts coming in. It was the people who were coming down the ladder between the Ryman and the Bluebird. It was one of the only places in town where you could sit down and watch a concert.
Okay.
And so Gillian Welsh did tons of shows there.
Wow.
And so we had real success there, but that drew in the idea of a music nonprofit wanted to decided they saw this as this is the original Grand Ole Opry stage. This is a place where
historic.
it's for sale. We could take it over and we could do something with this. And so the Hawkins group was, he particularly wanted to make sure that we didn't get just steamrolled. And so he said, work with them. And that was not, and that was we couldn't find a way to co-own the building,
right?
And I was reading the sort of the tea leaves, as it were, and asked one of my friends who was on the board and the executive director at the time, Steve Small, to go through the numbers and to tell me, is this entity going to exist in 2 years?
Right.
Is the Belcourt? It is, if the rent keeps going up and is this going to fold anyway?
Yeah.
And because I didn't have the business sense to know that, but the answer I got back was, we don't know. But in 2000, what happened was the songwriter group came to Hawkins and said, we have the money to buy this. They don't. We can't work with them. Yeah. And so we got a call from the Hawkins group saying, we're going to sell it to them tomorrow. And I asked if I could meet with them that morning before their meeting. And I offered to buy the building personally. And I had, this is basically all the money I had and to my name. And I got a loan and they agreed to sell it to me because I was going to pay the back rent.
Wow.
So I had a 5-year lease with with Belcourt that they had to start buying into ownership because I couldn't afford to keep it. And so the idea was that they would eventually buy me out.
Wow. Okay. So if you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. We're talking about Belcourt 100. We were just hearing from Tom Wills, who bought the Belcourt Theatre. And now we want to talk to Stephanie, the executive director of the Belcourt Theatre. Stephanie, when did you get involved?
So I was hired in late 2006. Remarkably, I think still to this day, the board hired me when I was literally 9 months pregnant with my kid who's graduating from Hillsborough on Monday. So that's how long I've been working here. And started working there in late January 2007. So I came in at the tail end of Tom's ownership because we finally were able to do right by him and buy it back from him. And also, as I think the tides were shifting in terms of the film world and the film audience growing and engaging with the Belcourt on a whole different level than it had in those early days. So I got to walk in during a real moment of transition and growth, honestly.
Yeah. And it sounds like, to me, in reading through the bio and reading through like what you did for the Belcourt, it seemed to be that like the Belcourt, it was the stage for the Grand Ole Opry. It was doing community theater. It stopped doing theater. Then it started again. It started doing shows. And at least to me, in my reading, you narrowed its focus and found its niche. Is that correct? What was the key for your stewardship?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, when I walked in the door, we still had the tagline "Film, Music, Theater" under our logo, right? And so I think one of the things that I got to observe as an outsider was that we were getting real traction with the film programming. But the other thing that was true was that the Belcourt was sort of unique in music venues in that one moment. Nashville was starting to grow at that point, and likely this was not going to be the one-of-a-kind music fit that it was for the long term. And so it was easy to see that the niche we really filled for Nashville was the film programming piece.
Yeah.
And even when we were a music venue, it was outside promoters just coming in and renting the building. It wasn't our own internal curation. But the film work was Toby Leonard in those days curating those movies as he does today for all of you all. So it was clear that was a really specific place that Nashville needed filled, and we were filling it.
I feel like Toby is such a special ingredient in the recipe of the Belcourt. I keep on thinking, why has the Belcourt lasted 100 years? What is it doing that other places aren't? And I'm from Milwaukee. We have a great movie theater, but it still plays a lot of big budget ones. Like the Belcourt intentionally playing Spy Kids or, movies that small movies that shouldn't be making money. I think any executive director would say, this is dumb. You need to play things that are popular, that people like. That's how you become popular. You play things that people like. The Belcourt intentionally goes against that grain. How is it able to succeed despite the fact that it doesn't do things that are popular?
I think it's because we all sort of staff-wide, I mean, the Belcourt is incredibly lucky to have one of the best staffs in the country running an independent theater like ours. But staff-wide, we all agreed that we were sort of led by the mission first and not the box office, right? That's what really defines being a nonprofit film entity versus a for-profit film entity, right? It's not, we're programming for the community first. And one thing that I think also happened when we started to get our legs under us is that we had an intersection of a new release film and in a film like Pan's Labyrinth that was drawing in great, diverse, interesting audiences from across Nashville. And at the same time, we were running this Janus film series. Janus is a very famous film distributor, right? So we had a film series of all of a repertory film series of all of their work that was very expansive and wide-ranging. And people were coming to both. And so I think just that intersection is what informed the way we built audiences over time. And so it absolutely was some curatorial vision. Some of it was what Nashville was responding to. And some of it was good luck and also hard business, right? The commercial cinemas were blocking films at that point from the Belcourt. So we didn't even have, even today, there are things, if we wanted to play it, I don't think they might now, but they weren't going to play with us for a long time. So we were sort of limited, and in some ways that made us a more disciplined and flexible programming institution, but it also made us more creative and sort of tied into our community in terms of our programming choices.
And Toby?
And Toby Leonard's been there the whole time.
Who is he and what does he do quickly?
He is our programming director. He really is the vision behind all of the film curation. And then we have also Zach Hall and Sharonica Hayes that are sort of support to him. And Zach does Midnight. Sharonica does a lot of other community programs. But Toby has, from the jump, been the guy who puts every movie on screen, watches everything. He goes to festivals. He is very plugged in across the country as a film programmer, very well respected. But, he started as a double bass player out of Belmont. So like classic Nashville, right?
Yeah. And it's like person by person, instance by instance. I think the Belcourt's so special because it's so many little things and it's so organic. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. We are talking about the Belcourt and its 100th anniversary. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll be taking calls about your favorite memories from the Belcourt Theatre. We'll be talking about 2025 and the next 100 years of the Belcourt. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm your host, Justin Barney, and this is Nashville. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the Belcourt Theatre, which is celebrating 100 years in Nashville this year. What is your favorite memory of the Belcourt? What's some weird thing that happened to you while you were there? What's some conversation that you had? Give us a call, 615-760-2000. I think we could do an hour on that, but we'll be taking a couple calls later. I think that the thing that makes the Belcourt such a special place is that it's a great hang. There are few spaces in Nashville, in the world, that encourage us to have conversations about emotion and about art. The Belcourt is this modern day salon that I absolutely love. And in the show today, we're talking about the big moments of the Belcourt. But I think that the Belcourt is so special because even in the small moments, the ambient nights, each night is big. So I went to the Belcourt this Monday, and I recorded this. It's a night at the Belcourt Theatre.
So you're here for Friendship, right? I'm Quinn Hills. I'm front of house staff at the Belcourt. Do you need a parking pass? Yes. Okay, cool. The group of people who work here, many of us are artists, and it's really incredible how we can all come together under one roof and do this, but still have autonomy. A lot of other places, if you leave for 2 weeks or a month, you're not going to have a job when you come back. Hi, and are you a member with us?
I am, yeah.
It is sold out, so we'll probably have, I think we're going to have people line up outside because it's like 332 people.
Okay. Do you know what time the line will probably start?
You might be a friend. Yeah. Hey, Coley.
My name's Coley Henson, and I am a manager and front of house employee here at the Belcourt. Sometimes it can get hectic. As for tonight, for example, we're having 2 pretty big screenings back to back, and it's not brain surgery. At the end of the day, we're just giving people like goobers and popcorn and stuff.
My name's Jolton Mayfield. I work front of house and box office at the Belcourt.
Jolton, you gave one of my favorite movie introductions of any movie introduction.
Yeah, Dazed and Confused was my staff pick last year. I got drawn in the month of April, so I campaigned for 420. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get it, but they gave it to me. I spent a lot longer writing that intro because when I introed Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it was 23 minutes long. Because I wrote everything that I wanted to say, but I didn't edit it down or read it. Yeah, we have like a keep it to 5 minutes rule for intros now, and I'd like to think I'm part of that.
You never know what you're going to get with an introduction. We have staff, we have professors and historians. It's such an incredible way to get a framework before watching a film.
I'm introducing a screening of Friendship. My name is Zach Hall. I am the programming and education coordinator and in-house media producer. The movie is, it's we don't get a lot of great comedies these days, and one of the sort of special things about comedies and horror films, which are 2 of my favorite genres, is, they're films that thrive on being seen with a big audience.
Hello, everybody! Welcome to the Belcourt Theatre and tonight's screening of Friendship. We are so excited to have you here with us for a very special preview screening. In these dark times we live in, where technology runs amok, having a friend, IRL friend, is perhaps one of the most important things. So I want you to look deep in your friend's eyes right now, and I want you to say, I love you, man. For those of you who don't have friends, I would urge you to come to our screening on Thursday night. We're going to be preceding the film with a round of speed friending. All right, y'all. So you guys are in for a very, very strange time. But without further ado, let's sit back, relax, and let's make some friends.
You like it? I'm Grant Warner Lowe. I work here at the Belcourt Theatre as a projectionist, and I'm here on my off day to watch Friendship, one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Even when I'm not working here, I come here. I'll bring friends here. We go see a movie.
It is just a place to hang. I mean, when a movie's over and you go outside with your friends and some people are smoking cigarettes, we can just talk about the movie. I've done that a lot as a patron.
That moment when they were in the jail and Paul Rudd lost his toupee for the first time, and Tim Robinson was making that face like this. That's exactly the face my dog makes when she does something naughty and doesn't want to look at me. She won't look at me.
This place is crazy, man. I love this place. Swamp Dog's here.
I did most of the album in my underwear only.
What do you think?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, interesting as a film. On the edge of chaos, but I still enjoyed it. I mean, it captures the spirit. So good.
We're closing down for the night, and there's still people outside talking about the movie they just watched. I guess what kind of like ties everything together is like a strong community around it. It's just something you feel when you walk through the doors.
The vibe of the Belcourt is, I think, one of just love for art. People who want to see Fellini's 8.5 for the 14th time, and we've got a guy who has. You have all these different people bringing their personal passions to whatever it is that brought them here and finding an outlet for that, communing with other people of their kind.
You know, hopefully in another 100 years we'll still be here.
All right, I'm over here.
Okay, I'm over there too.
That is a night at the Belcourt Theatre that was this past Monday. I'm Justin Barney, and I did all the recording on that. And I'm here back in the studio with Stephanie Silverman, the executive director of the Belcourt, and Belcourt public historian Teddy Minton. We also want to hear from you. Do you have a special memory of the Belcourt? Do you have a night like that? Something else? 615-760-2000. That's 615-760-2000. To call Stephanie, Teddy, do we think that captured a night?
I mean, so exactly that it was sort of like we were there, especially to hear all of our fabulous colleagues. The Belcourt is an incredibly lucky institution to have a remarkable staff of people. And that is stem to stern, from the people flipping on projectors to the people making and serving you food to everyone running stuff in the office. It's an extraordinary group of humans, and we're incredibly lucky to have them.
I really think that is like part of the vibe, is just like going there with like tonight speed friending at Friendship at the Belcourt tonight. It's making friends and going with your friends and feeling like you're in a space of community. We've got some people who are on the phone line who want to share some of their memories. I want to take a call before we get into what y'all have planned for Belcourt 100. So we've got Catherine on the line calling from Nashville. Catherine, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Bomboy. I'm a native of Nashville, a longtime supporter of the Belcourt. My best friend from high school, Julia Sutherland, inspired me to come and volunteer. Just like Tom Will said, I actually helped renovate the bathrooms early on before, literally like taking the tiles up on the floor and, doing late night, crazy resets, sweeping up the popcorn, taking the trash out before fundraising events. And my experience as a child going to neighborhood theaters in Nashville, but also seeing what could happen when a community came around, the opportunity to share art and culture with Nashville through the Belcourt inspired me to become a member of the International Cinematographers Guild. And so I now work on film and television from the inside, but like we truly need institutions like the Belcourt, and congratulations on 100 years in Nashville. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank
you, Catherine.
Yeah.
And I hope one thing that's really clear through all of this is we are an institution that was stood up on the shoulders of a lot of people, and there were a lot of heroes who did the heavy lift. Julia, people like Catherine, Tom Wills buying the building when he had no sense that we would ever be able to buy it back from him. We are the essence of saved by and lifted up by community.
We've got about 5 more minutes. I do want to take another call from Kathleen because these are fun. Kathleen, welcome to This is Nashville. What is your Belcourt memory?
Well, first off, happy anniversary to all of you at the Belcourt. You're just a true neighbor and a true treasure to all of us that love movies. I guess my best memory is It's a Wonderful Life. It wouldn't be Christmas here in Nashville without being able to have that collective experience that you've talked about. I remember the first time I saw It's a Wonderful Life in its full form. And it was just nothing short than kind of fun and miraculous. But I think my funnest memory as a theater goer is, and I have to thank Toby for this, is when you had the Lord of the Rings on Thanksgiving, complete with second breakfast and contributions from Fido's and the local merchants. It was a marathon of all the Lord of the Rings, and we just were able to geek out amongst each other on Thanksgiving. So thanks for that.
That is the kind of stuff, that is the small thinking that makes the Belcourt fun. I think that we could and should take calls all day, but we are on a time limit here, and it's the 100th birthday. So, Stephanie and Teddy, what do you have planned this year as the year-long celebration of Belcourt 100?
Well, you're going to see us just point to this anniversary all year long. We are not going to be quiet about this. We're going to take our time and sort of spread out. But just to sort of kick it off in June, our actual birthday is May 18th, right? So coming right up.
This Sunday.
So on June 1st, really the May 31st forward, we're going to kick it off with a really special screening on June 1st of Robert Altman's Nashville, right? It's also the 50th anniversary of Nashville. Keith Carradine, who stars in that film and is so iconic, is going to be here to talk to audiences about his experience. And then later that evening, we're going to show the Altman film Thieves Like Us. John Shook, who's another Altman Company regular, lives in the Nashville area. So John and Keith, who are both in that movie, will be here again talking to audiences before the film. It's just kind of a lovely way to jump off and celebrate both us, a filmmaker we love, and a film that means so much to the city. And then from there, Teddy has been working now for 2 years to really do a ton of research and gathering so much storytelling, but Teddy's got a whole slate of incredible seminars, and I'll let Teddy talk a little bit about the seminars that are going to kick off.
Teddy, you were handed a stack of materials shortly before we started this program, so I'm sure you've been sifting through many, many things. What are you presenting to us in this year?
I have. So every month we will be having a seminar that in some way tells a story not only about the Belcourt's relationship to cinema history, but in some way shapes our position in Nashville's wider relationship with film and cinema. So that will include films shot on location in the city. Cool. That will include films that star people who got their start on our stage. It will really run the gamut of a lot of different historical topics. But essentially, because we've been around for 100 years, we have the privilege of not only sharing our story and its various elements, but how it connects to the city's larger relationship to film and cinema. So that's really exciting for me. And a lot of this research has culminated in a oral history project called the Belcourt Stories Project.
Yeah.
And that is really, again, also a way of capturing the cultural legacy of the theater through people's personal stories, their interviews, and the archival documents that they share with me, like you talk about. So I will be taking these visual elements of our story and engaging with our audience through social media and different exhibits inside of the theater that will also correspond to the month's topical seminar and the films that we have screening to try to draw all of the different elements together in a story that's pretty interconnected.
Yeah, you're Drop the Instagram handle. What's going on?
The Instagram handle is at Belcourt History, and we're up and running. And you can follow us there to see this, this visual history of the theater and our local cinema history.
And a month-long series called Nashville City on Film that'll be June's programming that I think will be really fun. So anybody who wants to see this city on the big screen over time, join us.
That's correct. And the seminar that goes along with it is called Nashville Hick Flick USA. So come learn about our city's relationship to filmmaking.
All right. I want to thank our guests, Stephanie Silverman, the executive director at the Belcourt Theater, and Teddy Minton, the public historian for the Belcourt, and Tom Wills, longtime community supporter and volunteer, and man who bought the Belcourt. Thank you everybody for listening and for following along. I am Justin Barney, and this is Nashville. Thanks for tuning in this hour. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are L'Orange and Namir Blade. Special thanks to everybody who helped with the Belcourt and everybody who works there. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. The conversation doesn't end here. Tell us more about what you think and leave us a message on Blue Sky and Instagram and X at thisisnashville. I'm Justin Barney. We'll see you on Monday, everybody.